Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of my holiday live stream. I'm thrilled to be here with you in Southern Ontario, and I'm starting to really feel the holiday vibes. It's American Thanksgiving this week if you're tuning in live, and macaroni and cheese is often a part of the Thanksgiving tradition in the United States. So I thought that would be fun to create an appetizer inspired by that. These are my lobster mac and cheese bites, a pick up and eat appetizer. Before I get into the recipe, I have to say my hellos and thank yous. First, thank you to Rolling Meadows for making this live stream possible. And hello to my mom, Esme, hi, and little Lori if you're watching this someday. I can't ignore little sister, of course. So I'm so glad you're joining us. To Aunt Cecile in Edmonton, Lisa's aunt, hello and happy birthday to you. I know it's coming up soon. Kathy and Craig, thank you for joining us. And I see lots of familiar names popping up from all over. So this is something a little bit different. A savory bake today, of all things. Now I'm going to get my stove heated up here. And who loves macaroni and cheese? Please let me know in the thread. Do you love your macaroni and cheese? What kind of cheese do you favor in your mac and cheese? I'm going to walk you through a classic recipe. If I may say, this is a cheesier version because I want the cheese to actually set the mac and cheese so I can cut it into squares once it's cold and then bread it and then bake it. You can use your air fryer. It's a great way to make use of your air fryer to crisp up the outside, and then the inside is so soft and creamy. So let's start by making a traditional mac and cheese sauce. And I love Cheyenne, woohoo, everyone. Davo's down with the mac and cheese. Wesley from New Jersey, maybe think about making this for Thanksgiving on Thursday. So a basic white sauce is at the heart of a mac and cheese. In culinary terms, it's referred to as a bechamel. And the first thing we have to do is make a roux. So what I'm doing is first weighing out my butter. I need 45 grams, so 3 tablespoons of butter. And you are probably accustomed to me saying, oh, whenever you bake, you have to use unsalted butter. But you know, when it comes to cooking, I leave that choice up to you. You can use salted or unsalted. Typically, the butter you're using is in a smaller amount that is not really going to transform the seasoning of your dish. And of course, we're melting so much cheese into this. So I'm going to melt my 3 tablespoons of butter in my pan, and Michael has stove cam set up because we've got lots of action happening over by the stove. I'll melt out the butter. I do like to use a wooden spoon when I'm cooking a roux for that gentle stirring. You can use a silicone spatula too, but I think because I was taught to make a roux using a wooden spoon, I stick with it. This is one of the first sauces my mom ever taught me to make. You know, when she teaches you those basic, the survival things you need to know, learning how to make mac and cheese, of course, was an essential. And so I learned how to make the roux from her, and then what a discovery to go to cooking school, and I think I made bechamel on the very first day of class in my sauce class. Now for this sauce, I like an equal amount by volume, butter and flour. So I've got 3 tablespoons of butter, 3 tablespoons of flour, and I'm stirring the two together. Are you on the stove cam, Michael? I see we've got lots of people joining in. If you're just signing in now, I am making lobster mac and cheese bites. Oh my gosh, absolutely delicious. Crunchy on the outside, creamy in the middle. So as the butter melts, it's softening up the flour, coating it, and now I'm gonna just play with my heat a little bit and I think turn it up a touch. And I'm cooking out the raw character of the flour. If I were to add my milk now without cooking out the flour and butter together, first 2 things would happen. You would taste the raw taste of the flour. It would never really cook out, and you actually wouldn't get the full thickening power of that butter and milk together. Now, if you are making a gluten-free cheese sauce, You can do that, but what I like to do is I stir in a tablespoon of cornstarch into the cold milk. You don't cook it out first, and then I thicken it up. But what's important is you want to work in some extra flavor, because this roux, this cooked flour and butter mixture, is going to add a nice background taste to this basic sauce. So what you would do if you're doing the gluten-free version with the cornstarch is you would add a little Dijon mustard, which I am to this sauce anyhow, but also you could melt in, after you thicken it, melt in a little bit of butter so you really get that flavor. Oh, and Davo, I see you're picking up on the lobster edition. Well, I am stepping this up. This is a holiday appetizer. If you don't want to use lobster in this recipe, you can leave it out and just make good old creamy mac and cheese bites, and it would be delicious. Hey, cheers to you, Wesley. Thanks for the shout out. And Wesley, you're joining us from New Jersey, so Wesley's asking what everyone's cooking for Thanksgiving this weekend. I know I turn on the parade, and then I love watching football. So football stays on all day long. Now you can see the bubbling, just to go back from football back to cooking my roux here. You can see it's bubbling up. So it's not a dry or heavy roux, and I find it makes it easier to add the milk. And what you have to do is follow your nose here. So I'm gonna get in there. You're looking for just a subtle toastiness. It should smell like lightly toasted almonds. You don't want to see a color change. So I am very, very close. So I'm going to measure my 1 cup of 2% milk. There we go. You can use full fat milk if you want, but 2% works just fine. Hey, Uzma, I saw you in Vancouver. You came to the show this weekend. Fantastic. I've been really traveling around the last few weeks, haven't I? So I've got my 1 cup of milk. Then I'm going to pour in about 1/3 of it at first. So this now thins out the roux, warms up the milk. It turns into a paste very quickly. And then as soon as you see it thicken, you add your next addition of milk. I don't believe you should ever have to strain a bechamel sauce if you add your milk gradually. So as I mentioned, this is a cheesier sauce than I would use if I was just making a bowl of macaroni and cheese to serve creamy, although it is delicious to serve right out of the bowl. And as this begins to thicken, I'll take a minute because I like to add a little extra richness to the sauce with the addition of sour cream. Whoa, so 2/3 of a cup of sour cream. In lieu of cream. You could use whipping cream if you wanted to, but I like the tang you get from the sour cream. It keeps the sauce from being too heavy tasting. And now what I'm waiting for as I thicken up this sauce is for a few bubbles to break the surface. And then I know that the flour has done exactly what it's intended to do at that point. Just a few bubbles. Come on, you can do it. Great opportunity to take a look at your comments. Oh, Cindy's asking, can plant-based milk work? Yes, it can, 100%, but go for a richer one, something with at least a 2% up to a 3.5% fat content. And hello from Kelby in Missouri. So you'll be planning for Thanksgiving. Oh, Rob is pointing out that my necklace might be rubbing against the microphone. Let me just get rid of that now. Thanks, Rob. Rob is our channel manager and looking out for us here. And I've got butter on my fingers. I wonder if I tuck it in. There we go. I wore it because it's a reindeer, so I thought it was holiday appropriate. Now, Michael, if we can get one last shot of our sauce, you can see it's bubbling. So now I'm going to turn down my heat a little bit. Take it off the heat just so you can see easier here because the lighting is just a bit brighter. And now I'm going to stir in my sour cream. And that sour cream will dissolve into the milk, and it already has a natural thickness to it. And now if you have your heat on, say, medium to medium high to have thickened your base sauce, okay, thanks, Rob. Glad the sound is better. When you're melting your cheese, you want to turn down the heat. You want to melt it in a little gradually in little bits. And so that's my butter that I'm melting. So I have 4 cups of old cheddar cheese. So I'm going with a white cheddar. Of course, if you want to use a more traditional orange cheddar, that is 100% fine. I do like using the white though when I plan on adding lobster, so that way you can see the pink of the lobster against the white of the mac and cheese. Sanskriti, you're asking a good question. What should be the temperature of the milk for your bechamel? You know what? I was taught in cooking school to heat the milk, but I'll be honest, if it means dirtying an extra pot to heat the milk, I have added it. I added this ice cold milk. I just made sure I added the milk in little amounts, and I have never, ever had a problem with it. So cold or room temperature is absolutely fine, but you don't have to eat the milk. And hello to Marisa from Montreal. We've got people joining from all over. Oh, Lisa's thinking of applying to the Great British Bake Off. And if I could inspire you and you get on the show, that would be absolutely amazing. And you'll have to let me know if you make it. I hear the audition process is quite arduous. So good luck to you, Lisa. I'm stirring some more of my cheddar cheese. So I've added about 2/3 of it now. I am using a whisk to make sure it stays nice and smooth. Pardon me. And it is smoothing out. I'll keep looking at the questions while these... Wesley's asking, is Gordon Ramsay a judge? Not of British Bake Off, so you'll be in good hands, Lisa. A gentler treatment, definitely. Pardon me. Oh, Louisa's watching from Mexico, because macaroni and cheese is just one of those ultimate comfort foods, isn't it? Oh, so delicious. And that latest edition of the cheddar cheese is almost melted in. So in goes one more. And I should let you know that, oh, there's a note from Brad about my 3 cheese bake. Oh my gosh, it's been ages since I've made that, but yet it's your go-to. That's amazing. I love hearing about recipes I've created in the past that are so much of a staple that they're a part of your current everyday repertoire. That is fantastic, Brad. Let's talk about the pasta while I finish melting in this remaining cheddar cheese. I have tubetti pasta. So they're little short tubes. And what they kind of look like are cooked macaroni, but straight and cut into smaller pieces. And I find when I'm cutting these bites into bite-sized squares, I like the tubetti because you get a cleaner cut and a denser, more densely packed, chilled macaroni and cheese. So you really get a precise square out of it. And I should let you know, I wanted to make this recipe today, even though we are still over a month from the official Christmas week, because this is one of those recipes you can make now. You can portion your mac and cheese squares. You can bread them, then you can freeze them. And all you have to do is pull them out as you need them and bake them in, and they're ready to go. They're perfect, perfect, perfect. I'm gonna pull this off the heat. Look at this beautiful creamy cheddar cheese sauce. Ooh. Now to finish it up with a little extra seasoning. I don't find I need to add salt to this recipe at all because you've got all the salt that's in the cheddar cheese itself, but I do add a little extra flavoring. It's up to you if you want to add a little dry vermouth. Just 2 tablespoons is all that's called for in the recipe. And it gives the cheese sauce kind of a fondue taste. If you want that, oh, and it changes the aroma. That smells amazing. But you can leave it out altogether. You don't need to substitute it with anything else. Oh, Cindy's saying she uses the tubetti for soup too. That's really good because it fits on your spoon. Again, I really want to pack in some extra flavor into this. So I've got a little bit of Dijon mustard. And has everyone heard of Old Bay seasoning? It's a Maryland seafood spice blend. It's got paprika, lots of celery salt, I think some garlic powder and salt. This too, because this adds salt, I don't need extra salt. If you don't have access to Old Bay seasoning, you could simply use a little bit of celery salt and a pinch of paprika. So I whisk that in at the same time. And now I'm going to warm up the lobster. So I splurged, and this is cooked lobster meat. I bought it already cooked and out of its shell. If you don't want to use lobster, crab meat is a great option if you still want to stay in that shellfish world. You could take cooked shrimp and chop it up or use baby cocktail style shrimp. But as I mentioned, you could leave it out altogether. Other foods that would work really well in here could include cooked mushrooms, finely chopped. That with the mac and cheese. If you're into bacon, some cooked bacon stirred in. So we're just looking for something that takes it out of the ordinary. I'll switch from my whisk to my spatula, stir in the lobster just to warm it up a little bit so that it breaks apart into little pieces. Wesley's asking, how about tuna or salmon? 100%. Certainly you could. I know it used to be a rule, and this is when I was taught to make bechamel sauce in cooking school, I was also taught to not put cheese with fish or shellfish. But that was in a day when you couldn't guarantee the freshness of the fish, and they would say that it was the strength of the aged cheese might make the fish taste off. But we've got beautiful fresh produce. You can buy so much that's frozen. I'm just going to set that pot aside. So I don't feel that rule applies because I find this combination of the cheddar cheese with the lobster absolutely fantastic. And so my tubetti, this was 2 cups of raw tubetti pasta cooked. And then you don't want it chilled. You want it about room temperature so that you don't seize up your cheese sauce as you stir it in, but it doesn't have to be hot. And then for a little pop of color, some green onions. You know what? I have to say, it's lots of fun to be making something different for you. You're so used to seeing me do traditional baking sweet recipes. I think this is lots of fun to do something savory because guess what? I don't eat cookies for breakfast. I eat lots of savory food, and cheese, well, that is one of my favorite ingredients to cook with. Sanskriti is asking an interesting question. What should be the ratio of salt to water when cooking pasta? That whole notion of salted like the sea, I think is almost too much salt. So actually, I'm going to put that question to you, Michael, because he is a culinary professor. He teaches culinary students here in Niagara. How do you guide the students to season their pasta water?
I would say about 4 to 5%.
How do you, as a home cook, how would you calculate for?
About a tablespoon for every liter or every quart.
Oh, okay, I like that.
It's quite heavy.
It is a lot. So a tablespoon for every liter is what Michael is saying. So I'd say, yeah, I tend to just sprinkle it in, but I think that makes sense, consistent with what I tend to do when I'm cooking the pasta. And you do want to salt the water when you cook your pasta. So now I'm tipping. You could rewarm. Now that I've added and taken this off the heat and the pasta's cooled, if you wanted to eat it right now with the spoon, you certainly could. You would just want to reheat it on low. But I've got the pasta in a 9-inch pan. You could use an 8-inch pan equally. For something like this, unlike a cake batter, that inch difference in a pan is not going to have consequence, but I have lined the pan with parchment so that I can pull this out. And now what I'll do is let this cool for a little bit, and then you want to chill it for at least 2 hours. If you want to make this ahead of time, you could make this, chill it, pop it out of the pan, and then wrap it and freeze it to then cut into pieces and bread later, if you wish. So you have so many make-ahead options, which I think when it comes to holiday baking is absolutely key. So I'm going to set this aside to cool. And now it's time to cut the squares. I am making use of my live stream and getting ahead on my holiday preparations at the same time. I'm going to have lobster mac and cheese bites all the time. I've got a batch that is already chilled right here. And actually, Cheyenne is asking a question. She gets it that I don't eat cookies for breakfast. But what is my favorite savory breakfast? Actually, it's a bit of a kooky recipe, but when I need a real power breakfast, I make oatmeal, and it can be rolled oats or steel cut oats. I stir in spinach, and I stir in pesto, and then I put a poached egg on top of it, sometimes two. And wow, between the protein from the egg, you've got the vegetables from the spinach. I love the flavor of the pesto. That is one of my all-time favorite breakfasts. And Wesley, you can deep fry these bites if you want to. So I'm going to go into the breading process. So here is the pan of mac and cheese already chilled. Grab my cutting board. And then I'm going to pull this out so it pops out easily. And you can see between the cheese and the pasta, this has set perfectly. I'm not going to bread all of these. I know you like joining the live streams, but let's not be legrets. You don't want to watch me bread lobster squares for half an hour. Well, it wouldn't take half an hour. But I find I get 36 nice size squares. I'll tip that out. That back in the pan. So I'll cut this half of the pan into 3 this way, rotate, and then let me center it for you here. Oh, well, good morning, Robbie. Thank you for joining us from Singapore. There we go. 18 squares that are easy to slice. Again, if you want to freeze them at this point, you can. But I do have my breading station. So let me bring over my components. A common way to bread, and you'll see, of course, the full recipe for these lobster mac and cheese squares is right below the screen here. A common breading station. I'm going kind of with these traditional techniques you're taught in cooking school. You start with dry, you move to wet, and you end with dry. In this case, I've got panko breadcrumbs. You could use regular dry breadcrumbs, but you want to make sure they're dry, not fresh breadcrumbs. If you are baking or using your air fryer, what you want to do is melt some butter and stir that into your dry breadcrumbs. So because you're not immersing your lobster mac and cheese squares in hot oil, you need to add a little fat to the breadcrumbs so that you get a nice even browning. And you also get a really good seal on the outside. But because this is a firmer style of mac and cheese, you'll find these squares hold their shape, they won't collapse, they won't be overly squishy. And now that I've got that butter stirred in, I can bread a few of these. So how's everyone doing here? Oh, Ilana, it's okay. I'm so glad you could join us. I'm using tubetti pasta, cooked, so that way you can really see. If I hold it here, Michael, do you see the overhead shot? You can really see the density of the square, but you get the nice little holes to remind you that there is pasta in there. Now, first thing I do is I dip the square, and a general rule, try and keep one hand out of the dipping bowl. So I always try and keep one hand clean just in case. Never know, you might have to reach for something like your phone at the wrong time. Tap out off any extra flour so that it's not too gummy, and then you want to fully immerse the square in mixed egg and then into the buttered breadcrumbs to coat. Like so. And I'll keep doing this. I think I'll do 6 if that's okay. That should be enough for us for a little appetizer tonight, Michael, don't you think? Yes. You're ready for a little bite?
The lobster smells great.
Oh, you can smell the lobster. Ah, very good. Yes, and since Gritty, you could use roasted vegetables in place of the lobster very easily. You bring up a very good point. Anything you stir in, you want to make sure is fully cooked. That way, you're just focused on making sure that you get a nice crisp breading that's evenly browned. You don't have something inside your mac and cheese that you have to worry about cooking full because everything else within there is fully cooked as well. Now, I picked up on a recent trip, I picked up a tip, and I haven't tried it with this recipe, so I didn't want to do it live and have it not work out for you. But when I learned how to make arancini in Sicily, you know, those little beautiful cheese-filled rice balls, I learned in a cooking class that instead of doing the flour, egg, breadcrumb, they would make a flour paste, equal parts by volume, flour and water to make a paste, then rub that over the chilled rice ball and dip it in the breadcrumbs. And it really did a great job. So I'd be curious to try that to see how it would work too. And it's true, Ahmad, thank you for joining us. And 1 is never enough. I'll just do 2 more here. And as you can see, there's a good reason you only do this one-handed. Of course, if you did 2 at a time, it would work a lot faster. But this is one of those activities you take on early in the holiday season when you have a little more time. You don't want to be doing this on Christmas Eve at 8 o'clock at night. No, you want to be able to pull these out of the freezer and know they're already done and ready to go. Bonnie knows she'll be getting a little batch of these. I'm going to bread them for her, freeze them, and then drop them off in a day or 2. No rush at all. I'm glad everybody is enjoying this. We've got so many people signing on. If you're just signing on, I am making my lobster mac and cheese bites, a delicious appetizer for the holiday season. And there we go, the last one. Now, I wet this towel, so that one's going in the laundry right away. Didn't want to have to disappear. The sink is actually, just in case you need some perspective, yes, our kitchen sink is behind that camera, so I didn't want to have to leave. If you're oven baking your mac and cheese bites, you want to put them on a tray, but you want to put a rack on the tray and have them sitting on the rack. So that way the air is circulating around the oven. If you have an oven with a convection fan, I know I'm always nervous about convection baking with my desserts. I wouldn't want to put a convection fan on a cheesecake or the dessert recipe I'll be making this time next Tuesday. But when you want something crisp and browned, that is when you turn on the convection fan. So you want to preheat your oven to 375. You can even do 400. And if you're using an air fryer, you don't preheat it. You just put it in the little tray. Some have the toaster oven type model. Some have the sort of, it looks like R2-D2, the baskets you put in. My oven actually has an air fry feature. So it amplifies the air as it circulates around. So you want the air to circulate around. If you wanted to deep fat fry, these only take about 2 to 3 minutes dropped into vegetable oil. But in an oven or an air fryer, they will take it'll take 10 to 15 minutes, depending on your air fryer, but I find generally 15 to 20 minutes. So I'll pop these in, but lucky us, I did a few right before we went live. And here they are. Let me just slide this forward. And can we see these all right, Michael?
Beautiful.
Hot from the oven. These delectable, thank you for helping. Look at these delicious bites. Oh, and I want to take a bite of them, and I know it's going to be 1,000,000 degrees, but they're easy to handle. And what is nice is they will stay hot for a while. So you can either do them in batches, or after you've heated them through and you have that beautiful browning, turn down your oven to about 300 Fahrenheit, so 150 Celsius, and then you can just hold them warm and then restock if you're having a party where you need to be filling up the plates now and again. Oh, there's one little, I love when you get a broken piece. Oh, it's hot. I told you it was going to be hot. Oh, I got a nice piece of lobster in there too. There it is, something completely different for you. But just to let you know, I cook and I bake, and these delicious lobster mac and cheese bites are something I know that you can make. You've got some fundamental techniques, and even if you don't make these mac and cheese bites, now you know how to make a decadent and delicious macaroni and cheese. If you're watching from the States, I wish you a happy Thanksgiving. If you're watching from Canada and anywhere else in the world, I'm so happy you could join this week. And don't forget, I've got 3 more holiday live streams coming your way. This time next week, I am making an individual plated dessert I know you're going to want to join me for. But in the meantime, dive into this recipe. I know you've got this. You'll just be a hit with your family and friends. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rolling Meadow, and I'll see you soon. Ooh, someone's asking for a fruitcake recipe. Okay.